Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope it's going good. Hope your morning is going good so far. It's about 10 o'clock, 10:05 on a Saturday morning. Uh, it's funny because whenever I have a few days off or vacation, I always kind of lose. I always get disoriented. And there's always a time where I kind of forget what day it is. Like yesterday I thought was like Saturday for some reason, and I had I had seen that a couple of friends of mine were playing a gig in town at Hey Sailor, which is a place I go to a lot, which is an awesome venue, and I kept thinking, oh, it's tomorrow or yesterday, which was Friday, but I've had most of the week off. I had Monday and Tuesday where I worked, and then the rest because of Thanksgiving break I had off. But then I thought it was last night, but it was actually tonight, and I drove there. And I'm like, when I was getting close to the venue, I'm like, oh wait, wow, parking is really good. There's not really any cars here, so this is easy. And so I pulled up in the front, and I'm like, oh wait, they're not even open. And that's when I looked it up afterwards, and then I realized it was tonight. And tonight I can't go to it. So just like that happens to me easily when I have like a chunk of time off. It's pretty disorienting. But anyway, I want to thank a lot of the folks who have been. Um, there's been a cool core of people who have been really commenting a lot on these videos, and that's really and that's just totally awesome. I want to thank everybody for doing that. That's one of the main reasons I upload lots of videos all the time. Lately I've been recording a ton of videos and then kind of setting them up to premieres as premieres, but I kind of mix it up. But I do I put up a lot of content, a lot of movies, a lot of movie reviews, and so I really appreciate it. And this channel has been going for almost 2 years, and it's been a blast. Like, it's really great. One thing which I haven't done in a really really long time, is I haven't done any interview segments in a while. I've done quite a few on this channel, and I want to do more. I just haven't been able to. Well, not been able to. It just hasn't really presented itself to as other opportunities. I haven't really been proactively trying to do it yet, or fairly recently. I did some in the fall and over the summer, and I really really enjoy it. And I'm gonna eventually I'll do more. And obviously, setting up interviews involves a lot more work because of scheduling all of those things. I've done some reviews. I should say I've most of the interviews I've done have been through video. I've done videos when I do the interviews. Sometimes I'll do them in person. I Most of the videos I've done have been in person, and then I'll meet that person or guest, and I'll have the camera set up, and we just basically set up the interview that way, or do the interview that way, and then through Skype, through a video kind of conference thing, and record that. I've done it that way, and then I've also done it just by phone. Phone is pretty easy because again, I'm a big fan of having video along with those interviews, but doing the phone interviews is pretty easy in comparison. But we'll see. And lately I've been just sticking to doing this regular format of doing the videos. But eventually, some opportunities will, I'm sure, present themselves to that again. So today's show is on a movie that I just I love to death, and I think that this movie, I bought this movie last year, or actually no, I should say this year. I bought it not that long ago, and it's definitely become one of my go-to, or one of my all-time favorite slasher movies. And it's a movie that I saw when I definitely saw this movie growing up. It came out in 1982, and I think it's one of the top classic 80s films, one of the best slasher movies, period, and that is Slumber Party Massacre. This is such a an awesome, fun movie. for your movie watching pleasures and enjoyment. I mean, if you like slasher movies, um, this is one of the best. This has all the great classic tropes. The other thing that is very cool about this movie is there's some really great interviews on, within this film. It's just, you know, it's just great. And Amy Holden directed this film, and which is, a pretty rare thing when I'm not aware of too many female directors in the exploitation world. Amy Holden was a real. There's a really great interview with her on this Blu-ray package, which is really beautiful. The transfer is amazing. Um, this was put out by Scream Factory. Beautiful transfer. It's all remastered. I mean, this is the reason why I seek out and try to make you know Blu-ray purchases, and just trying to focus on that as far as when I buy movies. But there's some really great special features on here. The director, Amy Holden, like I said, is Amy Holden Jones. She is a pretty rare breed in the world of exploitation, world in filmmakers in general. I'm not really aware of, out of all of the exploitation horror movies, even the giallo films that I have, I do not, I can't really think of any other, barely any other female directors. It's very interesting. She has a very interesting story. She was a originally when she was going to school for film, she was making documentaries, and she made a documentary that won when she was basically a teenager. She made this documentary that was entered into this basically a contest for, they were seeking out the best new voice in the world of documentaries, and she won this really prestigious award. And then after that, she was hired by Martin Scorsese um, to be on set and to act as to a degree a side or an assistant director to Martin Scorsese on Taxi Driver, and it's wild. It's a wild story, and she was super young when she got this gig, and she was basically, on working with a master right out of the get go on one of the most iconic films ever made, and from there, she ended up working. She ended up getting a really good job working with Roger Corman, and Roger Corman, of course, is like the godfather of the exploitation. And Roger Corman is one of the most I mean, he passed away fairly recently, but pretty much one of the most important figures in the film industry. He helped start the careers of so many directors, and so you know, the list is, and I've talked about this before, but the list of directors that came through his camp is staggering. I mean, John Carpenter, James Cameron, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, it's amazing. And she also came through this camp, and she was working on as an editor on a lot of his films. She edited one or two of the first films by Joe Dante, who is another really famous director who directed The Howling, and he directed the Gremlins. He also started his career in the world through Roger Corman, but then also in the world of exploitation. And I always think it's interesting when directors make those transitions from, like, the the kind of the seedy, grimy world of exploitation into more commercial films. One of my favorite directors who definitely made that transition fully, but I think he still made really great quality movies. Bob Clark, went from making Black Sunday to Christmas Story, which is just wild. And Amy Holden Jones, she was given a really amazing opportunity to where she was eventually, after working for Roger Corman, she had the opportunity through making all of these connections to make E.T. She was asked by the studio, by a major studio, to if she would be interested in directing E.T., and she passed on it, which is just wild, because E.T. was eventually picked up by, and it was directed by Steven Spielberg, of course, and that movie became just like kind of a cultural phenomenon of a movie. I mean, it was a movie that really was. I mean, not only did it make an incredible amount of money, but it really touched the um, touched the public in a certain way where people. It appealed to everybody, kids, people young and old, generations. I know for me that was a film I used to watch as a kid. That was a part of my youth, but it was kind of a cultural film. It had a deeper impact than just making money. And she passed on it, which was insane. And she, instead wanted to make something, where she had more or less control over. And she directed this movie instead. This was her first film, the Slumber Party Massacre, which is amazing. And I think it's one of the greatest. I saw this film a few times growing up as a kid because of my exposure to like all of the great classic horror films and all of the great slasher films of the day. But I really got into this film, and I really think it's phenomenal. Since I bought it last year. When I bought it and I watched it, it had been, yeah, so many years since I had seen it, and so I pretty much forgot most of how this film was, and so it was like watching it for the first time, and then especially watching it on Blu-ray, which is always for me, one of the major appeals of why I love Blu-ray so much is because of you're watching a film in its best possible form in existence. So it really was this new thing, a new experience. And then I watched it again last night, and I just think that this movie is truly one of the great cult classics, one of the best slasher films. The slasher genre is my favorite genre. I think this is a movie that really has has that grit that I'm looking for that I'm looking for when I watch an exploitation movie. And it's actually a comedy. This movie is actually incredibly funny, and it's got a great cast. The cast is fantastic. Michael Valia is fantastic as the killer. It has boobs, blood, gore. It's kind of trashy, but it's really funny. It's got some great kills. Beautifully shot, actually, too. The music is great. And again, it came out in the prime time of this amazing world of exploitation. It came out in '82. And this movie, like, is um, in the world of exploitation. Like, this movie has a tremendous fan base. This movie is huge. It's got it. I From what I've read and from what I remember about reading about this movie, when it came out, it was like very, very successful. But it was a very, very low budget film, so it didn't have mass distribution. It wasn't on the level of E.T., which I just think is hilarious. Thank God she didn't direct E.T. That's a movie I don't really like as much now. I've watched that movie a couple times. Again, it was a movie I watched and saw as a kid all the time, and I liked it or loved it. But now it's like, I don't know. There's things about it that feel like dated. Well, for obvious reasons, but dated maybe not in the right in the wrong way. But Summer Party Massacre is just, I just think it's great. It's fantastic, and I think it's one of the best slasher movies to come out of that amazing decade, which was the '80s. 1982, prime time, So yeah, I can't say enough about this film. And if you haven't seen this, it's one hell of a fun ride. It's a party you don't want to leave. It's this transfer that was put out by Shell Factory is pretty incredible. It's beautifully remastered. There's two two or three documentaries about this movie, about the making of. It's a really great. There's interviews with the cast. Very interesting story too behind how this film got made, and the long journey behind it. So, thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.